All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD1000 Web Development Technologies course, I've been going through and doing a series of video presentations based on the PowerPoint slides for one of the books for the class, that book being Murox JavaScript and Jquery 4th edition. And I'm coming to the end of the first section of the book. I've done Chapter 1. Intro to Web Development, Chapter 2, Getting Started Fast with JavaScript, Chapter 3, The Essential JavaScript Statements, Chapter 4, How to Work with JavaScript Objects, Functions, and Events, Chapter 5, How to Test and Debug a JavaScript App, and Chapter 6, How to Script a DOM with JavaScript. So that brings us to Chapter 7, How to Work with Images and Timers. So images, image swap, timer, and a slideshow. And again, this stuff that they're going to show you how to do, you can do it without JavaScript, or you can do it with JavaScript. All right? So let's, without any further ado, as they say, how to work with images and timers. There are our objectives, both our applied and our knowledge objectives. All right. Now, I've given this example before in other classes, but I'm going to say it again right now. All right. So I'm going to bring up two pictures here. So I'm going to go into images.google.com, and I'm going to put in analog alarm clock. Whoops. And this one will work just fine. So I'll put that one out there. There it is. And now I'm going to put in here images.google.com. And I'm going to put in here clock radio. All right. And there's a clock radio. So who cares? All right, I've got pictures of both these, but I mean, like I said, who cares? Well, what does that have to do with anything we're even talking about? Well, if you look in here, if you look in here, they mention set timeout, clear timeout, set interval, and clear interval. So let's try to bring this into some kind of focus or perspective. All right, back when I was the age of many of the people in this class, we had alarm clocks that looked like this. You wound them up in the back. You had this little thing here that you moved up to turn it on. When the alarm went off, you pushed this little thing down and the bells here stopped. That was it. All right, so who cares? That's like setting an interval. Is like setting the clock for a time. All right, and clearing the interval is like turning it off. Now, when you look right here, and I've actually got a clock radio that's somewhat like this. But the idea is, so I set the alarm for 6 a.m. It goes off, but you know what? I just want to sleep a little bit longer. So instead of turning it off, I now hit snooze. All right. So the first one, and in fact, I probably misspoke. So let's just quickly take a look at what they show here, okay? So we've got set timeout. That's like the alarm that I told you before. That's the alarm clock, the old-fashioned analog alarm clock. That's pulling that little knob up so that it goes off. Then it goes off. And once it goes off, that's a... All right, so taking it again from the top. Set timeout, clear timeout. A set timeout is basically pulling this thing up and turning that on. So it's set for 6. 6 o'clock comes. It starts to ring. You take this little knobber here and you push it down. That is a clear timeout. All right. Then we've got this. And if you look on the screen, because I did a close-up, there's a snooze on there. That's like an interval. So let's say I had the alarm set for 12:08 for whatever reason. And it goes off, but I want to sleep a little bit longer. So I hit the snooze alarm. And it goes for 9 or 10 minutes, and then it goes off again. And I hit the snooze alarm again, and it goes through the same thing, maybe for an hour or so. All right? Well, again, that is a set interval. And if I decide I want to turn it off, that's a clear interval. All right? Some of the attributes of the HTML image element. Now, we talked about these before. All right? You, for lack of better words, I'm going to say must. When you are declaring an image element and you are putting it into your HTML, always, always, always include source, because that's where the image lives, but also include the alt tag, because that'll help for accessibility purposes. So for people who are sight impaired, all right, it will help them. Plus, if for some reason you give a wrong path to the image, or the image doesn't exist, it's been moved or renamed or whatever, it'll give some semblance of order as to what it's supposed to be. Also, I can't think of a reason for ever, never, ever in your actual HTML, when you create your image tag, never, ever put a width or height in there. That should be put into the CSS. So here is creating an image object using JavaScript. Why would you want to do that? Well, again, remember, one of the things that you can do with JavaScript is you can do things in an interactive manner. All right? And the advantage of doing that is, okay, const image equal new image. Maybe depending on what somebody selects, you give one image or another. All right. Maybe you ask somebody, what's your favorite type of animal? And you give them a list. They choose one, and boom, that's the one that you populate with. All right. You can preload an image, and they show how to do that there. Notice it's the name of the object, image.source, the name of the tag. Now, if this lived in a directory, you'd probably say images/imagename.jpg or whatever. All right. Oh boy. All right, and notice how to preload all images referenced. So if you want to basically, all right, now again, preload doesn't necessarily mean that you're showing them on screen. Preload basically means they're all available for you. And notice it's a for of loop that we're used, because this is a collection. Now, image swap, everybody has probably seen these. One thing is, I believe that this is the example. I don't know one of them in here. It looks nicer, in my humble opinion, if the actual images themselves that are going to appear here, both those and the thumbnails are all of this, so that the thumbnails are each the same size, and then the actual images that appear are the same size. It just looks nicer. It looks more professional. So here it is. So there's the thumbnails, and that's right there. And quite often you'll take, here they've got the third one, but it could be any one that you want that you put in there as the first one. It doesn't really matter. Okay. All right. Some CSS. Display inline. Why would you want to display those inline? Because remember that by default they're in a list. And lists are block level. So by having them inline, they're all going to be in the same row. All right. So not much CSS there. And here's the JavaScript part 1. So again, here's our alias. We're saying when the DOM has been loaded. All right, what do we got here? Well, we're setting up we're setting everything up in here. We're preloading in the images. All right. After we do that, we're coming in and we are adding an event listener. And basically just, it's, for lack of better words, we're setting it up to work the way you think you'd want it to work. All right. Two methods for working with a timer that calls a function once. Again, the set timeout and the clear timeout. An application that redirects after 5 seconds if a button isn't clicked. Notice we got this hidden here is set to display none. All right. So with the class of hidden, so somewhere in here, all right, it won't show at first. Okay. How to cancel it? Well, you have a set timeout, you cancel it with a clear timeout. Same kind of thing with an interval. But remember, an interval, typically you set it up with milliseconds, where there's 1,000 milliseconds in a second. All right, here's their slideshow presentation. This might be the one that they actually have it in here, and the pictures are of different sizes. Like I said, to me, that just looks amateurish to do that. I don't like the way it looks. Maybe if you did it, you like the way it looks, or maybe you think that's a good idea. You know, to each their own, I guess. All right, so that's good. This didn't take long at all. But I'm going to do at least one more here tonight. And for that, whoops, not there. I'm going to come in here and close that. And when we come back, we're going to go over Chapter 8, start on the jQuery essentials. These will be short and sweet. This is getting off to a fast start with jQuery. Again, with the more and more powerful that vanilla JavaScript is getting, the less and less people seem to be depending on jQuery. All right, so that's it. We'll see you soon.